Good morning. Welcome to the trade setup right here on Bloomberg Quint Live. I'm Neeraj Shah, and it's a week which is full of very interesting developments on the geopolitical front, on the economic front. The data that comes in. Remember, the Chinese data that report at least come out is pointing towards a good recovery in that market. But hey, that that's actually. Let's see how it plays out during the course of the next couple of quarters. But yeah, they seem to have returned back to growth in a meaningful way. And some people would say that's not great for Indian markets. Well, or some of the other related emerging markets as well, because people might think that let's just go and invest in China. But anyways, that's a far story. First, let's talk about the bad news. The bad news is that COVID-19 in the rest of the world is really rearing its head up again. I mean, the weekend was full of stories about what's really happening on the COVID front in a lot of nations that impact sentiment for an Indian investor. So this is the global infection curve. It's steepening at an alarming pace. The noticeable part is in countries like US, in countries like India. Those are the countries that matter from an investing perspective, right? And there, things are it's really steepening. There is constant conversation across states and across in the US and areas in India about the lockdown coming up again. And all of that is an issue. I'll get to that in a bit. But the point is, and these are the okay. Let's do the potential hiccups first, and then we'll get onto what the world markets did. So this is my sense of the trade setup today. That even if you are bullish on the markets, Trump saying that the U.S.-China relations severely damaged and therefore phase two trade deal is not a priority is a bit of an overhang. Now you remember all of latter half of 2019, it was all about trade talks, and it was only some resolution that brought some bit of stability to the markets then. COVID-19 is a big overhang right now, but this is not an unimportant variable. US and India continue to show record high COVID-19 infections as well. Some states in US considering rolling back reopening plans. Bengaluru, sorry, that's my mistake. It's a 7-day lockdown, but nevertheless it is there. But parts of Maharashtra are back in 15-day lockdown as well. And it would be happening across the other places in India too. So this whole reopening narrative, more so in India, wherein businesses would get back to normal sales, etc., might just hit a bit of a hiccup, and that's not great. But first, US markets actually went up on Friday's session on hopes of a vaccine treatment, and therefore they had a really good run in there. And frankly, the Nasdaq stocks had a really amazing run, and some of these tech-enabled companies also. I mean, just look at what a Amazon, a Tesla, a Netflix, etc. Netflix was up some 10%, I believe, or 8% in Friday's session. But the 1 month return of some of these stocks will tell you the story that people are really betting big on these names because they believe that they are omnipresent. Virus will not impact them. Business operations will be smooth, and therefore those set of businesses will do rather well. Yeah, look at this. I mean, these are all uh, massive appreciation that we've seen in the last 2 months. Tesla leads by a mile, but don't forget, 28% gain for a Netflix or a 25% gain for an Amazon is nothing to scoff at on that base. Just that these stocks are doing really well. Is this rubbing off on Asia today, and is it showing on the SGX Nifty? That's the other key question which will determine what happens to trade, right? So, bring up Asia and HSI and KOSPI, etc. The peripheral markets in Asia that I saw, some were troubled by this announcement of how the movements around COVID-19 are happening. But there is a bit of stability, you would have to say. KOSPI is up in the green, HSI up about 0.4%, so no problems thereof. And the SGX Nifty will come up on your screen as well. And that will show you, I mean, like I said, there are potential hiccups to the rally, but I'm using the term rally because the market seems to be reasonably buoyant for now. The only question that you've got to ask yourself is that for how long? But anybody who's asked for how long and taken a cash call has actually gotten. So remember, my trade setup is that there is a rally, but there are potential hiccups. So you have to keep that at the back of your mind. But in light of all of that, key question remains, what are the stocks that you should be monitoring in the session today? Now, the first two almost became the stocks of the day, but not quite. However, I'm putting them now. I have to start off with Avenue Supermart, so DMart, right? Revenue is down 33%, EBITDA down 81%, PAT down 87%. Now, is this a bad quarter? It surely is. It's a horrible quarter. Is this known or was this known? I would presume the answer is yes. It is a bit worse off than what I had thought, to be honest, because it seemed that the grocery stores and supermarket chains, etc., are all doing well, and then they've had an 87% hit. The comments from the management as well. is interesting. They're saying that while the business outlook continues to remain uncertain in the second wave of the pandemic, the company is less anxious than what it was at the beginning of April. There's a bit of a positive and a bit of a negative to this. My belief is that the stock may start off lower, not will, but may start off lower. It may correct for maybe a couple of days as well. But remember, it is the established businesses with the balance sheet might that will kind of conquer some of the other weaker opponents. And you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at Avenue Supermarket. It is an established business. It is a strong balance sheet. Keep that at the back of your mind. It is an expensive stock, and therefore it needs to deliver every single quarter. The fact that it is kind of missed compared to even what the worst of the estimates were leads me to believe that it could correct a bit today, but let's see time. Reliance is the other interesting one, and the juggernaut continues on two counts now. After Facebook, four other equity partners have also deposited the money. So that is part one, Silver Lake and PIF, amongst others. So that 30,000 odd crores has come into Jio. Imagine getting the kind of money in these times. And the new announcement is that it's a small stake, 0.15% stake, but Qualcomm Ventures will buy about 0.15% stake in Jio platform, so 730 crores. So that momentum really continues for Reliance Industries. There's some two interesting, very good notes from Credit Suisse and OFA on securities on valuing Geo platforms from a P investors perspective. So all of that is positive. Keep that at the back of your mind. Reliance could be an interesting one to monitor in the session today. PNB is clarified. The provision for DHF is actually higher than what they mentioned earlier. So 1695 crores versus 1246 crores. The stock had a slam dunk of sorts in Friday's session. Let's see if there's more in store today. Shoppers Stop is an interesting one too. The MD and CEO has resigned from the company for personal reasons. He's apparently pursuing some opportunities abroad. Hey, the MD and CEO resigning at these times. Uh, I don't know if he'll sit down well. It's not a very liquid stock. Keep that at the back of your mind. And for whatever it's worth, I'm just bringing out Q4 numbers for IRCTC. They don't really matter because Q1 will be a washout, but Q4 numbers haven't been too bad for IRCTC. So do watch out for this stock. Margins expanded, EBITDA expanded, net profit expanded. Everything did well in quarter four for IRCTC. Key will be what they do in quarter one. Last but not the least, by the way, watch out for Biocon as well, that approval that they've gotten. I know the market is really excited, but I've seen a number of brokerages saying that the stock may not even react too much. It doesn't really move the needle too much. So it'll be difficult to say, and which is why I'm not kind of highlighting it here. But keep in mind the news about the drug getting an approval for some emergency treatment for COVID-19. If Biocon reacts positively, you know why it is. Last but not the least, something that stood out for me. A lot of big packs were given out to for the right reasons, by the way, to AMCs when Franklin Templeton did what it did. The good part from a Franklin Templeton investor's perspective, in case you didn't know, was that Franklin Templeton and Nippon India have gotten the monies on the side pocketed Vodafone Idea bonds. The payment to the unit holders in all likelihood will happen today. Now, this is positive, viewers, from a credit risk fund perspective, as well as from if you were a Franklin Templeton holder and you were wondering if your monies will come or no. Thankfully, it seems like some bit of that money, at least on the back of Vodafone Idea paying the money, will come in. Remember, Vodafone Idea reacted in Friday, and there's a stock element to this as well. Don't be surprised if Vodafone has a positive reaction today as well. But that's it on the trade setup today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Happy trading.